Coalitions, agreements, alliances have been part of us since the colonial times. Kingdoms allied just to fight a common enemy. Was it an enemy or the colonialists? Fast forward, we come to 1954. Uganda National Congress, led by Ike Musazi, had one common goal: to make sure we get to independence. Moving to the 70s, we see a group of 28 people, the Uganda National Liberation Force, come together to ensure they chase Idi Amin. But we move further and see TDA, we look at the IPC, and we see these coalitions trying to remove the president. But we come to what is happening today. We look at agreements, we look at individual agreements, we look at parties, but the biggest question is, can it unite Uganda? What conspiracy or what catastrophe is about to befall this country that we need people uniting for it? And does it need individuals or parties? Where is the country at the center of this all? My name is Timothy Nyangweso, and this is Behind the Headlines. Let's meet the panel.
On the seat, a man was risen through the ranks in his journey of politics. He was the mayor of Kasese, joined national politics, and is now the state minister for ICT, Honorable Godfrey Baluku Kabyanga. A lady, a very staunch member of the NRM, joined politics in her youth. She was in parliament and now the deputy secretary general of the NRM, Honorable Rosemary Namayanja. He is a member of parliament in the East African Legislative Assembly. He is also the secretary general of the Democratic Party, Honorable Gerald Siranda. Another panelist, former Gulu local government chairman, and now he speaks for the people of Bardege Laibi in parliament, Honorable Martin Ojara Mapinduzi. She is a dean at the School of Gender and Women's Studies, a social scientist, a researcher, academic administrator, and associate professor, Professor Sarah Sali. Behind the Headlines is on tonight at 10 p.m. Make a date.
So that's where we are, and we're discussing the agreements, but especially the uniting of this country. They say we're a pressure cooker and we need a vent. The question is, do these agreements, both individual and party, get us to that vent? You can be part of the show on our YouTube channel, or you can stream live to be able to put your comment on Twitter. Just hashtag UBC Behind the Headlines. So let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I want to especially thank the first-time panelists here, Honorable Gerard Siranda, for coming through. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. And the Honorable Rosemary Namayanja, it's good to have you. Good evening. I think I should start with you, Madam Deputy Secretary General, especially on what the purpose of these agreements are and what was the motivation behind them as the National Resistance Movement.
First of all, I want to thank you for giving us this space to share information, to share experiences, to also discuss issues that are pertinent to our country, but most importantly, to our democracy. First and foremost, the NRM has been anchored right from, you talked about UNLF, right from there, when the FRONASA was formed, because the remnants of the FRONASA actually, which led to their participation in UNLF, and then formation of the National Resistance Movement and the National Resistance Army, and then subsequently going to Luwelo and coming back. But what the gist of the NRM is anchored on inclusivity in politics and different aspects of our social strata, because it's not just about inclusivity in the form of political parties, but it is the first political party that says, let's bring the youth on the decision-making body, on the decision-making table. Let's bring the women on the decision-making table. Let the army be part of these talks, of these discussions, of the debates in politics. Let's bring the workers. Let's bring the PWDs and of late, even the elderly. So that aspect of inclusivity is what led to the NRM's philosophy of broad-based, all-encompassing movement political system. So right from the beginning, it was like every one of us can make a contribution to the development of our country. regardless of our religious, political, and tribal differences. That was one. But what also informed that is the fact that the political parties that were formed at the time were either tribal or religious inclined. Many of them, I mean, if we all know them, but also the young people can read about the leaning of the UPC, of the Democratic Party, of the Kabaka Yeka. Just the name Kabaka Yeka meant that this was something of a group that owe allegiance to that. So for us as a party, we believe in inclusion, and we believe that each one of us has a role to play in national development, and that if a party does not win political power, it doesn't mean that leaders there in that political party cannot make a contribution to national development. If you look at the 1986 cabinet, it was an amalgamation of different forces. Those from the Bush, those from the Democratic Party, those from the CP, the Conservative Party, and other forces. And many of our leaders have come from different political parties. So even at this time, when the NRM has been in power for this long and has worked with different people, it's important that we work with all the other forces to ensure that each one of us makes a contribution to national development. So basically we believe.
I hear you on inclusion and national development, but you haven't still told us what are the objectives of these cooperation agreements, both with the individuals but also with the parties.
It is the same principle we are talking about.
So they have something to bring on the table? They
have something to bring on the table.
What is that
and
something?
You know, we have members who were in DP, that have been ministers in this government and have made substantial contribution. The Honorable Kutesa was the organizing secretary of the Democratic Party.
Actually, the time he crossed was the DSG.
Yeah, you can imagine. He was the Deputy Secretary General. And you can see the level of contribution he has made. There are so many people that have been there, and I was in UID. And I am proud of the achievements and of the contribution I have made. Because it's not just about parties. It's about also the individuals. You can see even in the current government, we have members who are of the Uganda People's Congress, we have members of the Democratic Party, and we have members of the Mama Joyce Sebugwao was in the FDC, we have Honorable Betty Yanywa. There are so many, and each of them is making a contribution. So basically it is also, I think the president is also walking the talk. Because for long the opposition has been talking about working national dialogue, working together and everything. And when he goes out of the way and say, please, can we work together? And for working with the Democratic Party and the Uganda People's Congress, for me it's progress. It's contribution to national development. And each of them, I'll give an example. Honorable Mao is one of the leaders, young leaders then that we all looked up to.
Honorable, let's come back to that one. Let's first build this case and give it a foundation. And let me come to Honorable Siranda. You were on this table as a witness of that agreement there, but the agreement hasn't yet come out to the public. The question is, what are you cooperating with the NRM? But also, looking at your ideologies, truth and justice, there's our own 4 pillars, democracy, Pan-Africanism. Where does the convergence of your ideology come to theirs?
Thank you so much, Timothy, and the entire management of UBC. This is my maiden appearance to this program. I've been to several programs here, but this specific one, this is my maiden appearance. And I want to first take this opportunity to condole with the Justice Forum, Jema political party, for the loss of their founding Secretary General, the late Honorable Hussein Chanjo, who was a key pillar at the foundation and the founding of the iPod platform. He was one of the SGs then that founded the iPod. And of course, to his family, to the Justice Forum, to the Kingdom of Buganda, and the Parliament of Uganda that he served, and the nation generally that he served diligently, and his Muslim community. It's a great loss, the time when Uganda needs such people in terms of rebuilding and punching the nation together. Timothy and viewers out there, the Democratic Party is a center-right political party. A party that believes in political untouchability in both sides. And it's in the DNA of the Democratic Party that we can engage. You remember very well great leader then, Ben Kiwanuka. At the time everybody was running away from Amin. Ben Kiwanuka offered himself to serve the nation as then the Chief Justice of Uganda. Everybody insulted him, but for the good of Uganda, the Democratic Party and Ben Kiwanuka put Uganda first. Every time Uganda needs a situation, is in a situation like we're in, and it needs a bridge, the Democratic Party offers itself. And you know, from the days of Lancaster, from the negotiation, you cannot talk about Uganda without the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party is the second oldest party on this continent. I think only ANC is older than DP by some few years. And the DP is given in for Uganda. At the time we needed the NRM, remember that this is maybe a reconnection. The Democratic Party has a bigger stake in the presence and the coming of the NRM. In Ruwero, the Honorable Namayanja, the greater Ruwero, where they come from, the DP had won all seats there. There was an NRM in Ruwero. Actually, the people that supported the war were the Democratic Party members. Remember, the election that they contested was won by DP. The election that was contested in 1980 was a DP election. So it means the DP was a key stakeholder. And remember the Honorable Matia Nsubuga and his contribution. He was a manager of the East African Airline then. The DP did a lot of contribution, immense contribution. And it's not the first time the DP is doing something like this. I'll explain to you the difference. So there was, when 1986, Dr. Kawanga Semogerere worked with President Museveni. And in fact, the only leader of DP who had not worked with government was Honorable Norbert Mao. All the six, except the other first at the foundation, the Kasolo and the rest. But from then to Sevana Kizito, to Semogerere, to now Norbert Mao, is only Norbert that had not joined in terms of bringing the DP ideas to working with the government. In 2001, when everybody else was asking and fearing to work with Besigye, you know that the DP worked with Besigye, and there was a Haji Aragide formation that created the processes of Dr. Kiza Besigye. And I mean, people don't only credit that, they only think that this is the first time we are coalescing. It's not written anywhere that we can only do formations with the opposition. In earlier 2000, towards I think 2004, towards 2006, 2016, we offered our space to the former Vice President of Uganda, Gilbert Bukenya. He walked to City House. When Sejusa had the problems, he walked to City House, to our headquarters. When Mama Mbabas had problems, the man I had fought and I was on street against all through all my youthfulness, when he said he was decide, we offered space and worked with them.
Honorable, I get that, and you being TDA, pushing Amama Mbabazi through, also 400 million spent by Uganda Young Democrats to ensure Honorable Kyagulanyi gets there. What is the convergence of your ideology between DP and the NRM?
It is Uganda.
Your truth and justice.
Yes, it is Uganda. Because we believe that we put the country first.
How is the country benefiting from this?
No, you allow me to do, because when you bring me here to speak with authority, because I am the SG of this party that is coalescing. So you give me time to explain to Ugandans what the thing, so that you're not speaking to people that are doing press conferences, you're now speaking to the authority itself. So we go to 2021 elections, and the elections go as it was, as it's going. Because we spent a lot of energy, 700 million shillings of the party, building a coalition. We came up with Tojikwatako, which birthed the party at the end of the day. But you know, when your four-grandfathers are Ben Chuanuka, Akasoro, you don't act as if your grandfather is Chibalama. The acting is different if the founder of your institution is Chibalama to when you have a repetition of who founded your party. You have all that. So we look at a country, we come from an election, people were arrested, you know, several people were in jail. The Honorable Norbert Mao then was the chairperson of the IPOD. He picks his phone, first calls all the principals of the party, say we need to engage. The country is on fire, you know, because there are a group of people that were only interested in discrediting the country. And for us, we said we can have plan B, but we cannot have country B. You will have plan B, you can do everything, but you don't have country B. We only have one country. So he also picks call, he calls President Museveni in his capacity as the IPOD chairman then. So we need to engage. When we finally arrive, we draw the programs for engagement. The Honorable Justine Kasule Lumumba there, my sister who I respect so much, was still a Secretary General then. And Honorable Namayanja, I think, was Treasurer within. So we arranged the meetings. We got Kololo because we said, what's the neutral venue? We say Kololo. We go to Kololo in an engagement. Our colleagues don't turn up in a meeting. So, but what did we score in that meeting is that we managed to pursue President Museveni, and we convinced him and 76 prisoners of war, majority who were not our party members, not my sisters, but the Ugandans of the NUP. So they came out of jail. So we looked at the country, and we know that when you run politics, you don't only look at our region.
Honorable, I want to quote you for what you said. You said our country is a pressure cooker.
Yes.
And this agreement is a vent.
Yes.
What catastrophe is befalling our country?
Yeah,
because you said the convergence between you and the NRM is the country.
Is the country.
So what is the catastrophe
It's
you're trying to
there are two sides that are extremism. There is a radical side that says the head must go. There is this side that says it's not going anywhere. So it's like a story of the Bible. Who is the owner of this kid? One says cut the kid, and we are saying no. We should be in the middle so that we bring both sides. And the DP does not only come with Honorable Norbert Mao. The DP comes with the expertise, with the experience, with the record of engagement. And we come in with the question of putting the discussion around transition.
Okay.
The discussion around national unity.
And I'm going to come to
the
those
discussion
details.
Around national dialogue.
Honorable, let's park it there. Let me come back to those details, especially as you're unpacking the aspects of that agreement. Let me come to Honorable Minister. When you look at this agreement, regardless of the individuals, regardless of the parties there, the convergence seems to be the country. What is happening, and what temperature have you felt in this country that really needs these agreements to happen?
You know, one of the major goals of the NRM government is socio-economic transformation. And when you are pursuing these goals, you must have the correct economic policies and the correct political policies, which include cohesion and unity with all political players, whether within your party or outside your party. So, and if you look at all these parties, all the parties, the divergence may not even be 10%. If you read their manifestos, they are all talking the same thing. The divergence will not even be 10%. And NRM has a history of cooperation. Look at its origin, the FRONASA. They cooperated and formed UNLF for a common good, to come and fight Idi Amin and liberate the people. In 1981, you saw that merger between FRONASA and then Yusuf Lule to form the current NRM. In 1986, when NRM took over power, it formed a broad-based government where Semogerere was a minister, Everest Nyanzi was a minister, Posiano Mulema, I think Sevana Kizito, Kavumbe Mukasa, all they formed a broad-based government.
Yes,
all this was to really transform and rehabilitate the government as fast as possible. Because it's not an issue of doing it alone. If you have cooperative political players, then transformation is easy. You don't spend time in fighting and making rallies and demonstrations. You immediately go in the transformation mode. And that's why NRM is always very, very accommodative. The issue is not that there is hopelessness or there is pressure. As NRM, we can do it alone. But when we do it alone, are we going to achieve what we want in the shortest possible time? And that's why we are saying, look, if there is any cooperation, it is very, very, it's good and it's welcome.
Honorable Minister, what does DP bring to the table?
DP is bringing a lot of expertise, political expertise,
The only two people we're talking about are Honorable Siranda and Honorable Minister. We only have Honorable Mao. Those are the two people we're talking about here.
They have followers.
Not Mao.
You are now looking at Mao, Honorable Mao and Honorable Siranda, but you are not looking at them as leaders of people. When Honorable Mao comes to sign an MOU with NRM, he's coming as the president of DP. And Honorable Siranda is here representing DP as a Secretary General. When Honorable Akena signs an agreement with the NRM, he's signing as UPC. And that's why we have Betty Amongin as the minister. You even had the president congratulating the MP,
winner in Oyam.
the winner in Oyam, and he said, our allies, I congratulate our allies, the UPC.
Okay.
You are getting me? So these people are not coming as individuals. They are coming as a political party. And the most important thing is we can cooperate with anybody so long as they have state interests, people's interests, and not having personal ambitions. But some people who have personal ambitions, they now see Honorable Siranda probably being supported by NRM to go to the East African Legislative Assembly because they are, for them, everything they think about is them, their personal ambitions. They interpret it wrongly. They see Honorable Mao coming in to join the government as Minister of Constitutional Affairs. It really hurts them, but he's bringing a lot of expertise. He's a lawyer, a seasoned lawyer, who is bringing in a lot of expertise. And one of the issues which the opposition has been putting forward is the constitutional reforms.
Okay.
And now here is a man.
Honorable Minister, let me have a word from Honorable Siranda, then I come back to Professor.
Timothy, even if you want to look at the personality of the Honorable Norbert Mao, when he talks about peace processes, do you have doubt that he means that a man who offers to go and meet Joseph Kony? If Norbert Mao can meet
I want
Joseph
to come
Kony,
to those details.
if he can meet Joseph Kony, what is wrong with engaging President Museveni?
Let's build the foundation, and let me bring in Professor here. Okay. Professor, looking at these agreements, the one with DP is now a year. It was signed last year in July. It's now a year. Honorable Mapenduzi, who is next to you, just recently signed one. Honorable Sebugwa was also spoken about by the president.
I knew that was coming.
We're coming to that one. We honestly have to be factual when we're going here. This new phenomenon we have of these agreements, you and I have sat here and you have spoken about, all these political parties have spoken about socio-economic transformation. Does this agreement, do these agreements deliver that? Good evening.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you very much, fellow panelists. Do they deliver national development?
National development, national unity, peace, reconciliation, all these nice words.
Well, I think for national development they could, because all of them, as Honorable Kabyanga has said, and we've discussed this here before, that all these parties don't have any particular ideology apart from developing the country. And it's not just the current parties. You can look at all of them from 1961. They are all, and I mean that's the whole reason we fought for independence, to be able to develop. And ever since independence, we've been taken down by so many unfair global development policies. So the issue of national development remains a key issue. And it's not by mistake that every political party focuses on national development. And so the only points of departure is who should deliver it. There are those who feel those who are there have not done enough. They should get out and we do the development. While those who are there think, actually, we understand the system better. Give us a chance and give us more time. That seems to be the only point of departure. Ideologically, there's no difference. Now, when you come to the pacts and you're saying there's new developments, first of all, they are not new. It's not the first time that Ugandan political parties, different political parties are signing pacts. In 1955, they signed the Namirembe Agreement. There has also been the UPC-KY Alliance. And you know how that one was signed and how they fell out. Actually, the ones who signed fell out much more than anyone else who was there. So I think for these parties to be able to develop, for such things to be read as delivering national development, we have to look at, first of all, what is the national character of those parties? Most of them actually don't have a national character. And those who are in power are forced to have a national character, because whether you are UPC in power in the 60s or your UPC in power in 80s or your NRM in power since 1986, you cannot afford not to have a national character, because you are the one in the driving seat, you are the one who has to think and plan for Uganda. So, but other than that, the rest tend to posture from the deficiencies of the ruling party to articulate their relevance, to articulate their agenda. And normally this is done by showing either how our region has been neglected, how as a people we have been neglected, how this sector has been neglected. So in as much as they keep pulling, that is actually not very much of a national character, okay? So they can come together, and I said as national development, that's where everyone is going. You have no choice but to deliver. By the way, I respect the individuals. Norbert Mao was my guild president. We campaigned for him, and he won the election. So as much as he is a person, he's a very good person. And the Honorable here is also a very good person. I have a lot of respect for him and everyone else who is being spoken about. But I think there are issues maybe that are forcing these people. Either there's a commonality of purpose in terms of national development, like Honorable Siranda has said, or sometimes there's a challenge in where people are and they need to take on board more people so as to expand the national agenda. But other than that, the contestation will always remain between the national unity, but also what these others are standing for. And when we have time, we shall actually debate this contestation more. You asked whether they have a following. Those who are signing actually believe they have a following. When you look at what is happening in the public space, there are those who think what they are doing is right, the progressives. There are those who think actually they're being opportunists. So it's a question of perception. Time will tell. But it's like, oh yeah, they have just signed because they needed this state position or they needed the other position. For me as a person who loves peace, I think, wow, it's a wonderful thing. We can have peace. But to go back to your question on whether this will build national development, yes, it can. National unity is built through a more detailed process, a more systematic process, a more intentional process, which I hope going forward we shall have an opportunity to discuss.
And staying with you, Professor, before I get to Honorable Ojara, as Honorable Rose said, she spoke about this country being built on religion, being built on regions, on tribe. Have we solved that problem, that these agreements can also be a benchmark to push us to the next level?
No, thank you, Timothy. I think we haven't. Because even how do these things happen? We tend to begin the history of Uganda around there and stop there. But the national project called Uganda is an abstract concept. There was no Uganda until we had colonial rule. We had the Buganda Kingdom, we had different kingdoms, Bunyoro, Busoga, and the rest, plus other tribal things. So those who took over Uganda at the time focused on building a Uganda of a national character. Unfortunately, their agenda was building a Uganda who would serve the metropole, who in this case was Britain. So the education you were taught, the languages that were started, the religions that you inherited were all designed to build a compliant colonial subject. And when we got independence, that was actually what we were. We got independence by struggling against that identity. So having one independence, maybe with Honorable Kabyanga in the Ministry of National Guidance, we would have to take on this seriously. Having one independence, we should have said, okay, how do we go forward with building a national character? And indeed, there were attempts. When you look at the flags flying everywhere, municipalities created as a symbol of the central state, continuing to be present, national anthems, they are those symbols of the state. But initially, actually, there also used to be national providence, which is part of the project of nation building in terms of social services, and people feel I'm paying the tax, the country is paying back to me. But then, of course, when we come into the 1980s, with the privatization of everything, and we are told the role of the state is just in peace and security, get out of the economy, get out of development. Of course, right now we are challenging that, and the state is coming back in. But those were 30 years of loss, okay? In that, while we existed as a geographical space called Uganda, it disrupted the nation building project, whereby what identified Uganda as Uganda in terms of the economy, in terms of the social services, in terms of the arts and culture, went, okay? It was left to free fall. So the dominant rise and the others do. And then that over time, people relapsed to what made them before. That's why you see a lot of the tribalism, a lot of the pooling, okay? It is either religion, whenever positions are being allocated, how many of my tribe are there, how many of my religion are there. So we are permanently balancing religion, we balance tribe, we balance gender, we are now balancing age, how many elderly people, how many younger people. I think while this can be simply seen as inclusivity, in as much as you are not intentionally building the nation, they will actually be divisive forces. And that's why you have constantly the local nationalisms holding the nation state at ransom.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Let me come to Honorable Mapenduzi. Good news came out. We almost touched the topic about 2 weeks ago, but
when did you hear that? When did you receive the good news?
The good news came out about 3 weeks ago. We were here with Honorable Semuju, and he tried to poke you. But let's look at the facts. You signed an MOU with the National Resistance Movement, and the question is, what is the context of this MOU you signed, and how does it benefit the people of your constituents?
Well, I jokingly ask her when you got the news, because this is something we have talked about. But it's important to continue talking about it, because it helps it helps get the message clear. You know, if you want to understand the decision I have taken and the cooperation agreement I signed with the National Resistance Movement, myself as an independent and the NRM as a party, then you need to begin by deeply reflecting where we have been as a country, where we are now, and where we want to go. But most importantly, you need to understand the kind of politics that we have today. I joined active politics active politics, community politics, in 2006. And I I joined the Forum for Democratic Change, FDC. So I have been in the opposition for all these years. But you see, we have to decide as a country the direction we want to take. If we believe that a lot of bad things happened in the past, then we need to make deliberate efforts. And you can only make deliberate efforts, one, by beginning to realize that everyone has a role to play. Whether you're an NRM, you're in DP, you're in NUP, you're in FDC, UPC, you need to have the belief that everyone has a role to play. And also every political party has a role to play. Whether you're in power or you are not in power, there is a role that you play, and that role should be played constructively, should contribute to the progress of the country, shouldn't destroy. So that is the first, perspective, the direction I take. The other thing that you need to know is that, we need to accept that you can only do much and do better, and you can change things if you are able to talk to one another, even those you do not agree with. You need to know that you can never avoid to talk to one another, even those you do not like. You have to talk to them, especially if you want to be solution-oriented. Now, why am I in politics? Because I believe there are things we need to do for our people, for this country. And those things I am not going to do by refusing to talk to somebody else. The NRM as a party may have their own issues, their own belief system, what they value and all that. I may have my own perspective. But how do I achieve the things that I believe should be done correctly? You need to have an environment where you talk. And so when you see Mapinduzi get to signing a cooperation agreement, what is a cooperation agreement? It's a document that puts clear what your intentions are, what your beliefs are, what you want to work together to achieve, and how you are going to achieve it.
And also the terms of reference.
It's actually part of what I'm explaining.
So what were those terms of reference?
Now you want me to go to the details of the...
No, we need like 2 or 3 of those, because...
I'll give you a summary.
Because the president's speech was also talking about individuals who were in this agreement.
Now I want to give you a
Yes.
summary. The summary is that this country, Uganda, needs people who are committed to working, to develop it, and we have to work together to develop it. That is it. That is the summary. It's nothing...
And by the way, it's not Honorable Mapinduzi alone.
It's not me alone.
The NRM has signed 53
Exactly.
cooperation agreements with independent MPs.
So
These are things that
and you
don't
see,
talked
when you
about.
hear some people talk, they think this is about having a position. It's about, you see, that is the kind of the level of misunderstanding that we have with our politics, because people have turned politics into a survival tool, and even the way they think. So somebody is thinking, what are the gains and what is Mapinduzi going to get? It's not about what Mapinduzi is going to get. It's about how we get together to talk about this country called Uganda. How do we contribute and move it forward? That is the main thing. So we need to start looking. I have seen, the other time I was telling a friend, he said, you know, why have you decided to work with the NRM? You have betrayed. And I said, wait a minute. What betrayal are you talking about? Do you have another country that you call home? I have Uganda. I have Uganda, and it's one country, and I have a duty to make sure I contribute. So if you have another country that you think this one is not important, you can destroy, it's okay. And then the other thing is, you know, we need to make deliberate efforts to water down the spirit of extremism in this country, where you think talking to Right Honorable here, the Right Honorable Deputy Secretary General of the NRM, is not only a crime but a sin. You shouldn't talk to her, and that is not the spirit. You have seen even people going to attend burials. There are burials, when you go and you belong to another party, you are chased away. Now that is bad politics. So for some of us who believe in dialogue, and we know there is only one country we call home, we need to continuously engage people, dialogue, and see the direction we take as a country. So that is the spirit of the cooperation.
And sticking with you, you have said something very fundamental, especially in the development of the country, but also where the country is. What is the problem that you saw to be able to get into cooperation with the NRM, to be able to bring solutions to? What leverage do you bring to this agreement?
There are many things. First, I work with the local government for 15 years.
Yeah.
I have seen, I have touched, I have felt. I know the challenges we have in this country, and there are things that we can do using those structures of government to address them. And I want to play a role in making sure we support one another to address that issues affecting the common man and woman in the village. So so it's about ideas. The NRM has got ideas. There are things they have done. You have your own ideas. And when we put the pieces together, we make it better.
Okay.
So it's about bringing the ideas that you believe are useful, to the table, and also listening to the ideas that they bring, dialoguing, and getting a common understanding. So we are able to, and you see, the Democratic Party has signed this agreement with the NRM. I have signed this agreement. I would love to see different political parties. If you do not want to sign with the with the NRM, go and sign with another party. Go on, it's not a crime. Like right now, FDC, they are tearing each other into pieces. It's sad for our democracy. They have to sit down, talk, agree. They need to know that talking is important. You can't solve it on the street by, you cannot even solve it, using the media. Get down, talk, and sort it out, or let another political party come in to help. And so different groups will have to talk, and at the end of the day, the talking should take us towards, one, accepting that there is one country called Uganda that we all call home. Two, we have a duty to protect this country. And as we engage those who may not have good ideas, we should remain, mindful that there are certain values and there are certain cultures that we have to protect and build, and also destroy the bad cultures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Honorable Namayama, let me bring you in. 2005, we get into this multi-party system. Has the multi-party system failed, that we look like we're getting into a pseudo-movement system, especially with these agreements?
I think it has not failed. It is actually maturing into the level of politics that we see even in other countries. But before I delve into that, first and foremost, like Honorable Mapenduzi said, we have signed 53 MOUs with members of parliament who are independent. And you are cooperating with them in their different constituencies and making progress. Then the other issue is, he talked about the local government. Even those who are in opposition and are leading local government.
Honorable Mapenduzi is the only one you put before the media. How comes you even put these other 50?
You had attention to him, but we did this actually at the beginning of this term.
And also, why are these agreements not
even
out in the
member
public?
of parliament for Serere, was it Serere where we lost the late Honorable Kabe?
Yes.
Was it hit in the media?
Yes, it was, yes.
Exactly where he sat.
Yes.
Is where the Honorable sat. And it's because at that time, maybe the aspect of cooperation was not a trending thing that the media never gave it attention, but we do it that way. 53 independent members of parliament, even the local governments.
Maybe if I may just ask a question, must they sign this cooperation? Isn't it a duty of every citizen to actually work with the state that is in power and the government which is in power? Whether you're signing or not, you have a duty to obey the state.
Yeah, but there is this, as you remember, the the rebel MPs scenario and the aspect of crossing. You went as an independent and you have now crossed into the NRM. So there must be a legal framework upon which you are cooperating. That's the justification for that. But the local governments, even members of the opposition who are leading local governments, are actually cooperating with government at that level. Like he said, you cannot be a member of the local government, a leader or LOC5 chairman, or even a councillor, and you are not working with the government structure to ensure that the manifesto is implemented. I usually tell people that even those in the opposition, as members of local governments, they are actually implementing the NRM manifesto. So there is cooperation at that level. They can't do work without the cows. They can't do work without RDCs. They can't do work with the entire public service structure. So there is cooperation at that level. And maybe the other question I would also, pose to those who think that cooperation is, but what does Uganda lose when people come together for the common good? The national objectives and directive principles of state policy clearly talk about what we call common good. What is it that we lose when we work together? Because you were asking, what is it that we are gaining? But by work, and why is it okay for the opposition to coalesce and work together? Even when they don't have the mandate to run government, but that it is okay for them to form IPFC, for them to form 4GC, for them to form TDA, for them to form even NUP, was a cooperation of different forces coming together, and then you see this group of this section of MPs crossing to this side, and to them it's okay, but that the ruling party cannot work with anybody. This brings me to the level that the president talked about in the letter that he wrote to Honorable Mao. He talked about taking wrong turns at critical junctions of our politics and our country. The things that we do at national level, they permeate in the grassroots. When I don't talk to Honorable Mapenduzi, when I don't talk to Honorable Silanda, and these are people who are primarily not in NRM, but that if I don't talk to them, if the hostility is so high, that means even the branch chairman of NRM cannot actually talk to the branch chairman of DP. Because our communities down there look at what we do. So we are saying we have had situations where people's banana plantations were cut. We talked about the KY, the DPUPC, that it was wrong and it was abominable for somebody to put on a green shirt then, and that it is meant for a certain political party. Somebody's banana plantation is cut because they don't belong to the same political party. They can't sit together. You can't marry into the other family because that family is opposition or is in government. So we are saying we have reached this level of maturity that regardless of our political persuasions, we look at the common good, the points of convergence. This brings me to the issue of national unity. We may not be where we want to be, but I can comfortably say that we are not where we were.
But why are these agreements or cooperation agreements not in the public? Why are you not coming out to address, like he said, the summaries that were there to say, these are the areas we are going to engage in?
Have we seen the agreements of IPFC and TDA and NOP and everything?
That discussion
because
is for another day.
the
We're talking
parties
about
to
the
the
ones
agreement.
that are between the NRM, the individuals, and
Why
DP,
separate that?
Because these are public institutions. NRM is a public institution, DP is a public institution, so is UPC. You are accountable to the Ugandans.
They have their right. For me, even when the president comes out and writes and puts things on paper, the parties to the agreement have their right.
Maybe I can just say this. You know, there are ways things are done. You are talking about the public. It's not about coming here in the studio and beginning to read. It's a public document because the Democratic Party as an institution have got their own structure. So when the president of the Democratic Party signs this document on behalf of the party, he has to take the information back to his party. That is how it becomes a public. But if you are noob and you want to know the content of what the DP and NRM signed, then you are out of place.
The NRM is a government, right? It is accountable to the people that
The
voted them
NRM
into
is
power.
a party.
It's a
first and
party.
foremost.
Yes,
It's a party.
but they
It's-
run
the
the
ruling
government,
party.
right?
Is a party in
And
power.
they are
Now
given
we are
the
mixing
mandate,
two
a
things.
social contract with the public.
Listen, we are
They
mixing
should
two
be
things.
accountable to the public, right?
We are mixing two things. The NRM, in the same way explained, also has got their own structures. They have their members. So if their party president sign, he has a duty to make sure the content of the agreement goes to their structures.
And who is the public? Is the public
So that is
the
also the-
parties that we contested with?
No. The public is the Ugandan out there. Because we agreed, at least here we agreed, that the common good here is Uganda.
Incidentally, the public is comfortable with this engagement.
like the
Okay.
one, like the one I signed. You, as a member of the public, I can sit with you and take you through. Are you okay with that?
Because you're an individual.
No, we can find time. We can find time tomorrow and sit. Is that okay?
Let me bring in Honorable Siranda here. Honorable Siranda, one of the things that...
But before you
yes.
bring, for me, I want somebody to tell us what the country loses when people who have been competing against each other are sitting on the same table for the common good. What is it that the country is losing?
Okay.
But even Timothy, if you
Yeah.
read the agreement, you can apply for it and you say the purpose for which you want it. Because all agreements are not just displayed. It is an agreement between the party and the Honorable Mapinduzi. But if you need it, for instance, you as a journalist here, you are having a very good talk show. If you need it, you apply to NRM.
Access to information.
Access to information.
Okay.
Act.
Act.
Honorable Siranda, you and
The
I
NRM
have...
put in place all these structures to ensure.
You and I have met in different forums, and you have basically spoken about some of the things that are in this corporations agreement. One of the things that you have spoken about is a bloodless transition of power that is in this agreement. You have also spoken about constitutionalism. But when we see some of the things that are spoken about, the Attorney General's report on the corruption in this government, on its human rights record, some of the things that you have spoken about in this cooperation agreement, how do you hope to achieve this if the common good is still Uganda?
You see, this is why you're actually coming to the line why we need to coalesce and cooperate around these issues. I do not know. I mean, we have this one country, and it is within our own right that God has given us the opportunity to be in these positions. And like I've told you, I will not get tired, because I'm not addressing you, I'm addressing the public out there, that we are in this country. Kenya was in the situation we are in with President Daniel Arap Moi. When the president stays like the President Museveni has stayed for all this long, you don't just rub off him that he's useless. First of all, the fact that he has had capacity to stay like that, he's become a system. And there are people that believe in the NRM system. The Honorable Manamayanja is here, the Honorable Minister is here. She moved from where she was and she joined the NRM, which we appreciate. That is a contribution that at least we are lucky that we have people like Honorable Namayanja who I can give a call and say, oh, there is something within this. What Kenya did was to engage Moi in 1997 to 2002, an engagement and assurance that the nation will continue to stay, and a lot of those. What have they done? They have had Mwai Kibaki, they have had Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, they have Ruto. Remember, Ruto was with Raila Odinga. You know, in a way of putting Kenya first, they had an engagement. And indeed, after Moi finished, he stayed well within that aspect of the agreement on how do we put a ladder on how does a person go up, how does he come down, and we remain using him and working together with a lot of experiences. When you go to Burundi, you needed a cooperation arrangement for you to get Nkurunziza away from a bloody term that he took to the process of getting Evaristo, and they even created a special seat in the Senate for him. When you go to DRC Congo, I don't even think you need Tshisekedi. His party was for his father with 1 Senate. They needed a moderate Tshisekedi and engaged the sitting president for them to have a transition of what they are. A transition can even be within in the process. And for you to even start talking about this process is key. When you went to Zimbabwe, during the bloody time, you needed to get Morgan Richard Changarai and Mugabe in one house for you to do disengagement that Zimbabwe was bigger. For you to get Juba or the country called South Sudan, you needed 2 people. You needed Garang in the house, the late then, and then you needed President Bashir. What am I trying to say is that when a person stays in power like President Museveni, you need an engagement, because I want to assure Ugandans there is no transition of what we want to see without President Museveni and the NRM. So what are we trying to see is that we can be partners. We have done many things. We have gone to the bush. We have, we've been drumming saucepans all over. We have walked to work. We have sat down. What do we have to do? I think for me is you cannot do the same thing all through and you expect different results. For now, we believe that the bridge is the smallest part of the road. But if you don't protect the bridge and it gets broken, you will end up the way Ruela had been. It's kind of another country. You can drive all the way from Gulu, and when you get to Karuma, the smallest part, the moment it's broken, you cannot access this other side. What are we trying to say in this process is that we look at the reality. There is hatred in people. Even at your gate, they're about to wait for you to say you are the one who is eating. They do not know how you've struggled to sit in that chair. For them, they think that all of us are seated here is something that has come. So I think it's important that we get to a process to unite the nation. The event in Gulu, you would see that the whole country, irrespective of parties, I saw people sitting there who have never seen sitting on the event. Seeing Saleh, General Saleh on an event, I have never seen him. Moses Chigongo, Al-Haj, and several other people. You saw the UPC, you saw the, and first of all, the people. You leave us.
What's wrong in that?
There's nothing wrong in that.
Outside, we who sit on the forefront, you saw the people resonating with the message, and people are giving hope that this country can get back to a building. And like I agree with the professor, when you go to the gate of parliament, you see Bukedi, Busoga, Teso, a lot of those entities that form Uganda. This is a project that all of us can come with our parties. You know, we have the DP, you have UPC, you have NRM, you have JMAN, and all. Even if we get all the 40, the 27 political parties within, is a process we go. And Kenya has done this. Right now, Kenya Kwanza Coalition, you have Musalia Mudavadi with his ANC, with his color. You have Moses Wetangula, the Speaker of the Senate, with his Ford Kenya. You have the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Kingi, with his party. And you have the UDA and all those. Even when you come to Azimio, you will see the the Jubilee, you will see the ODM, you see the Wiper, you see NAK Kenya, and a lot of those. For me, Kenya, even when you see what they do, is the politics of interest. What is interest for now?
I hear you when you give us the history and also the Kenyan understand they're building bridges and all these things there. But I've asked you a straight question. Yes. You and I have been on a panel where you have criticized the human rights record of the NRM, where you have criticized the constitutionalism of the NRM. These are part of your cooperations agreement. How do you hope to achieve these?
Now I am in the driving seat. I was at the side.
I thought you were in the convoy.
Yes, I know I am in the convoy, but with a docket that is charged with the processes of driving the question of electoral reforms. What my colleagues will be doing is to bring the proposals, because I was at the forefront of developing the people's electoral reform, the compact and all those. We are in the center stage. And the record of DP has been the issue of rule of law. You know, this is something we have been agitating for all through. Even the multi-party dispensation that you have now, DP went to court through Paul Kawanga Semogerere, Zakara Luma, and Reina Kafire for you to get a referendum that brought us to where we are. And I think for me is a question that we have been speaking and saying, Honorable Namayanja, this is wrong. We have an opportunity to work together with Honorable Namayanja for us to deliver on Honorable Mapenduzi and all of us. So it's an opportunity that all of us have a speciality and a contribution to play.
Okay. I'm going to ask that we take a break. I'll come back to the Honorable Minister, and also my question will be if this is in good faith, but also are we sorting symptoms and not the root cause of our problem here. But here we agree the common goal here is to have a country that is united, peaceful, and reconciled after this break.
These days, our homes are no longer just the places we live. It's where we attend meetings, go to class, keep each other safe, and entertain ourselves. To do this smoothly, you need a reliable internet connection. Buy the MTN WakaNet router, which connects up to 32 devices and get a free 40 GB data bundle at only 149,000 shillings. Or buy the MTN WakaNet MiFi at only 75,000 shillings and enjoy a free 15 GB bundle to stream, study, work, and play on the go. Visit any MTN service center to buy the MTN WakaNet router or MiFi and enjoy the internet that does amazing things.
Juko. Yo. Check the shopping, man. What's your secret?
Haven't you heard of the Parish Development Model, PDM?
Yes, I did, but I thought it was just a talk.
No, Sebatia. It is real. I and a few friends together formed a circle, accessed money from the PDM, invested in a poultry project, and now things are moving.
Juko. I thought I was one of your friends.
You are.
But you left me behind.
I didn't leave you in poverty. What you do, just visit your LC2 chairperson and your parish chief and start the process of economic transformation. Just like that. The Parish Development Model is an initiative from the government of Uganda through the Ministry of Local Government designed to transform all lives of Ugandans for the better.
My parish, my development, my life. Are you tired of high fees and slow transfer time when sending money? Airtel Money is here to revolutionize the way you move your money. We have revised our rates back to ground. Sending money from Airtel to other networks in Uganda, East Africa, and to the rest of the world has never been more affordable. Dial *185# and start sending money. Switch to Airtel Money today and experience unbeatable rates and top-notch services for all your local and international money transfer needs. Airtel Money, instant, secure, borderless.
Ekinene kikino Jemisinde mu bunabyalo ejjabagoberezi ba Kristo East African Christian Marathon jangu tuddukira wamu misinde gy'essaala gino nga 13 omwezi ogw'omunaana erugogo ku kisaawe kya hockey jangu okikirira abo mu makago mu misinde gy'essaala n'ekiruubirirwa ekirungi eky'okuzimba ekifo awanakwatirwanga amasimu ag'ettundutundu ly'obuvanjuba bwa Africa. Weetabe emisinde gino oddukire wamu n'omusumba wo abakulembeze b'ekitundu kyo abanaakiikirira Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DR Congo, South Sudan n'abawono mu Uganda. Jangu odduke ne Captain Mike Mukula agenda okukulemberamu abaddusi. Ddukirira enteekateeka eno ng'ogula omujoozi muwonaddukira ku mitwalo 2, mitwalo 3 n'emitwalo 10 kuba enteekateeka z'emisinde nga gino zikyusa ensi. Okumanya ebisingawo kuba ku noti 781-885 noti 55. Emisinde gya East African Christian Marathon giwagiddwa UBC TV, Star TV ne Star FM emmunyenye y'eggwanga.
MTN Uganda ne Uganda Waraji Baktusako. Man Ramichi Konatera. Tekobo Seko Season Yakuna. Savu July Kuma Mount Papa's Hall. Osasura MTN Mobile Money. Osasura Gumu Chitundu. MTN Osasura Nega Komitano. Niga Stemu Kagatano Stamu and Damunana Hasha. MTN. Ofuni tiketi yokati. Wabula kumliango. Osasura mitwale biri. Yepe mitwale tano. Atemeza. Ya milioni biri. Unana July. Kodin Hotel Mkono. Wena July. Nikan Resort Terweza. Kuminatan July France Africa Ginger. Abiri mbili July. Maria Flema Saka. Abiri mwenda July Afro Club Eka Sangati. Ateyo yonoku yingi na mutualo. Wafujinidwa Musente. Talent Africa. Victoria University. Suzu Property Consultants. Pepsi Max. Uganda Waraji. Ne.
MTN.
Welcome back from that quick commercial break here on Behind the Headlines. My name is Timothy Nyangweso. Let's get some of your feedback that has come through. Someone says, the Honorable Minister, unity then what? Because of the two bald-headed men always agreeing, there's only one who can be paid for nothing. Opposition is very vital, but it all goes to the pocket itching of those who are finished. Ariko in Tororo, okay? Honorable Mapenduzi, what else can you do minus the agreement, okay? I support Professor's ideas, and I want to see what happens there. Someone else goes on from Ginger here. Johnny says, how many years has the opposition and the parties trying to remove Mr. Museveni from power? Remember, he entered through using a gun. It's good to come closer to him and work. And also, the persons like Norbert Mao is going to be our next president. Okay, thank you very much. Opposition parties should stop playing with NRM. They should work together because NUP, FDC, DP, UPC have no army and are working with the NRM under the curtains, okay? Thank you for the show. Julius from Munyonyo, may I know from Honorable Mapenduzi and Honorable Siranda whether there is a paragraph in the agreement that prohibits them from talking about the terms such as stop disturbing them by asking them to stop. Okay, lastly, Honorable Ojara and Honorable Siranda, that company, I refuse. You dine with the ruling party, you do not have to explain yourselves. The innuendo that those that are sticking with the principles or the integrity of these ideologies are having another country is trivial and pedestrian in premises. Okay, thank you very much, Simon. I'll get to some of this feedback later. But Honorable, let me come to you. Something that was very profound that Professor Sarah spoke about, the abstract of Project Uganda, the way we were formed as a country. Are we solving symptoms with these agreements and not getting to the root cause?
But do you want us to respond to this?
You respond when I come to your Honorable. Just take note of it.
You should have asked them later.
Just take note of it, we'll come to it.
Okay.
Because the basis of the agreements is really for social development. But Professor said something about the abstract of how our country was formed. The question is, are we solving symptoms with these agreements, and how do we get to the root cause of our problems?
It's good we already know the abstract. We know why our country was formed. And we have all, and just as the professor also said, the purpose of independence was basically socio-economic transformation of our country, self-rule, so that we can develop our people. And that's what we are still pursuing up to now. And all these, whatever is being done, we are not treating symptoms because we know the cause. We know the causes. We have been having turmoil since 1962. A lot of confusion. We had the Amini's rule, and some of us were there, were alive, and were mature enough to see what took place. So when we bring all this unity, cohesion, working together, we are trying to see how together we can tackle the problems of this country.
Honorable Minister, staying with you, she said, and something that is in our history as a country, most of the parties, it was either on religion, on tribe, but also going back to the colonial times. It was basically tribes fighting the other. That problem of ethnicity, that problem of tribe, Honorable Siranda said you might walk from here and people are waiting for you at your gate with no real reason why they're attacking you. Isn't that the root cause of our problems? And are these agreements a solution to bring the unity we're talking about, the peace, the reconciliation?
Yeah, some of those are root causes of our problems. But you should also know that we are not going to eliminate them completely. Because the way our country was coined, it was different nations brought together, different kingdoms.
Forcibly, by the way.
Forcibly, actually, just as the Right Honorable Secretary General said, because Uganda was a nation, it was a state on its own. Busoga was, Toro was, Ankole was, Bunyoro was, and they were brought together. So that's why even those the parties will have that type of character. But we should also know that parties in those countries which you admire have also their own sectarian type tendencies, which may not be tribal. When you go to the Labour Party of England, it is mainly for the workers. And why? Because the workers were being marginalized. The Conservative Party is related to the rulers, the Queen and whatever. Even in America, the Republicans and Democrats, they have their own, they were formed on basically sectarian tendencies.
And maybe what I can add on that, even America to reach where it has reached, over 230 years.
Yes.
It is a process. That's why I said that when you talk about national unity, we may not be where we want to be, but we are not where we were. And when I stopped doing history, when I was in senior 2, and there was this topic of religious political conflicts in Buganda or Uganda at the time. And the issue was, Honorable Silanda talked about politics of interests. At that time, it was not the interests of Ugandans. It was not the interests of the people of Buganda or Toro or Bunyoro and the other kingdoms and chiefdoms. It was the interests of the colonialists. And to them, that suited them. So what we went through in 1961, 1966, 1971, 1979, 1980, and subsequently 1986, those were processes that actually impacted on where we are today. So this period that we have been in from 1986 to date has created that level of stability, that level of engagement, that today we can sit here, these members of parliament, when they are in that August House, from different political parties, they sit on the same table and take tea. And there are no cameras there. And their members in the villages are not watching that. So we are saying we want to unite as a country. We want politics of interest. Now, not the colonial interests, but interests of Ugandans. So for me, I believe that 60 plus years, we have moved somewhere. We just need, and what NRM is doing today, for me, I think we should pat NRM on the back to walk the talk, to say that we can agree, that there can be a common agenda, a minimum agenda upon which we can agree and also disagree on some aspects of what we believe in. But for the ruling party to get a position like Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, for me, NRM has walked the talk. It is a strategic positioning which controls, which is in charge of the entire arm of government, the judiciary. You have a Minister for Gender, Labor and Social Development. These are very strategic positions or ministries or placements. And we are saying we can move together. So I really think that we, as a party, we are walking the talk, and we want others to embrace the same, such that we can have harmony at the grassroots.
So if I can add on, the politics, parties being sectarian is not limited to Uganda. That one we should know. Even in Kenya, where coalitions are working very well, you see that the Kalenjin and the Kikuyu have formed their sort of coalition.
Where a party wins 90%.
Exactly. And then the Luya and the others, and the Luo have also formed their coalition. But now, how are we treating this? That's why we should actually support this cooperation. Because you are bringing DP, which people think is Catholic and Uganda, into an agreement with NRM, which NRM has tried actually to reach out to all religions, to all tribes. You're bringing UPC, which people assume is Protestant and probably for the North, to cooperate. So here we are now treating the problem which you are talking about and not symptoms. Because if we can bring all these together, if we can bring them into a coalition, I love actually the Kenya coalition. You can see how Jubilee was formed in 6 months to one what?
Honorable, let me give you an example. And let's be as honest as we can. A taxi scratched my car, and I got out to be able to see what happened. And the taxi driver gets out, not even knowing, but just looking at me, and said, "Banyankole mutu abako." Do you feel those undertones?
Yes.
And do those undertones, are they answered by these agreements?
Those undertones are there. And even those agreements may not solve those undertones. Because you should also know their characters. But I'm telling you, with the time, if we continue with these cooperations and we interact as much as possible, those undertones will.
And you know, Honorable Minister, if I bring in the professor, these conversations are very good for people who are in suits and dressed well.
Exactly.
A taxi tout,
Yes.
a border. Have you seen how a border can? Recently, Mulago, I think it was last year, when a gentleman was scratched by a border and they lynched the man. These undertones are what we're talking about. We seem to be very dressed in suits and not facing the real problem. To bring the unity. So is that agreement really getting to Omuntu Wawansi?
You see the lead.
Let us hear from the minister.
No, maybe you will answer this. You see, the challenge is that we that are leading people have accepted the lead to set the pace.
Yes.
When a leader, when people see us together and we resonate together, we work with the people together, for me, it's a process that people start believing that we are part of this process. You saw in Gulu. I want to give you an example of Saturday. You saw the people. Outside we that are here, people are happy and people now believe this is a process where we can start generating. You are not going to get the generation of people talking outside the street. It is we that generate and
let's have the minister finish so that I bring in Professor.
Timothy, who informs the people that Banyankole are bad?
It is we. What we are talking on.
It's we who are going around telling people that Banyankole are bad. We who are in the politics.
Actually, Westerners.
And why? Because we are looking for political power. We want to win elections. That is all. In Uganda here, the catchword will be Banyankole have come and taken over our land. Just because you want to win elections.
Okay.
And now, this taxi driver just gets it in his mind that Banyankole are bad. He doesn't even know. Some of them don't even differentiate between Munyankole and Nan. Like you, they will even not tell you, they will not even say you're Munyankole. They will say you're Munyarwanda. The way you look like.
Let me bring in Professor.
That is the biggest problem.
Let's bring back the conversation to where our problem is as a country.
Thank you very much, Timothy, and fellow panelists. I think we, in the discussion of national unity, first of all, I've said development, there is no debate. Everyone wants development. We are discussing national unity. This country has clear rules on how one becomes a leader. And so far, we've gone for the model where people campaign, and the one with the best manifesto wins and gets to form the state, the government. There should be no debate on how one chooses to cooperate or not cooperate with that. I may have been NUP, I may have been FDC, but the mere fact that NRM has won, the manifesto of that party that has won becomes the manifesto that sets the pace for the next 5 years until we have a change. If you read the manifesto, Securing the Future, which is the manifesto we are running now, it has very wonderful 12 pillars. I would be shocked if a local council leader refused to cooperate, and if they refuse to cooperate because of a different party, they should be sanctioned. There should be rules in this country. That is one. My point is that you don't need to be rewarded or to be convinced to work with the ruling party, whether you agreed with the party that won or not. There's no debate there. The second thing is, already we've said the ruling parties that there's no choice but to obey. So no one should be convinced. But then the other thing, that the mere fact that we are having this politics of I don't want to see you, you are this tribe, you're the other tribe, you are the other color, all speaks to the failure of the nation building project. By the nation building is not a thing you blame just on one government. It is a process, as I've said. So, and it will be a process even after we've gone hundreds of years, 200 of years. The states you see today with the national unity, first of all, also have different ethnicities. There are very few places on earth which have one. The rest, whether you're talking about Project Germany, exists alongside the different kingdoms that formed up Germany, Bavaria and the rest, Saxon and the rest. You're talking about the US, the United States of America, but there are so many states in there, each with different histories, each with different laws, each with different everything. So it is not true that national unity occurs only where there's no tribe or there's no religion. Those things are there, they are part of society, you cannot wish them away. What we are talking about is how do you make the national space attractive so that I can be tribe X, religion X, but I also love the space called Uganda. Chinua Achebe in 1983 wrote about the trouble with Nigeria. And for him, the issue with the trouble with Nigeria was like wherever you found the Nigerians, every conversation dwindled into pettiness of what doesn't work, okay? And for him,
everything doesn't work.
Everything doesn't work. And that seems to be our character as African people. That wherever we meet, whether back home or abroad, our conversations quickly descend in how deficient our countries are and how other spaces should be better. And what he was calling for in the trouble with Nigeria is how do you build a state? How do you build a nation that Nigerians are proud of? Of course, the National Building Project has been on, that today you find a Nigerian, they advance Nigerianism, before they advance being a Yoruba and an Igbo, in as much as those things are very pertinent to them. So what we are talking about in Uganda today is how can we be tribe X, religion this, district X, but Project Uganda works. And as I said, it's not anyone's blame, it's everybody's responsibility. But it has to be an intentional project. Constructing, actually in political terms, they talk about manufacturing a patriotic citizen is an intentional process where you have to mobilize the resources of the state. And what is there to mobilize to construct a patriotic citizen? You may disagree with NRM. You are free to disagree with whoever, you are free to cooperate or not to cooperate. But regardless of your party, you should fall in line when it comes to the country, Uganda. The British is talking about, actually disagree, those of you who watch Prime Minister's Time and whatever, Westminster. It looks so adversarial, but stand up and say a comment about Britain. Everyone will remind you why you shouldn't go back to your home. This is Britain. So there is a time to be British, there's a time to be Labour, there's a time to be conservative. There's a time to be Scottish, there's a time to be Welsh, there's a time, but when Britain is attacked, all these nationalities are subdued to the common. And that's what we should be building for Uganda. And that talks, of course, to their processes. How do you mobilize the cultural arts? How do you mobilize the economy? How do you mobilize the religion? How do you mobilize the educational system? Of course, in the past, we used to have parades, you would sing the national anthem, and all those things have gone away because we are doing coaching from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. A kid today doesn't know what the national anthem is, what the flag stands for, what the colors. Those things looked like they were petty, but they are very important. And why are they important? Whether we have agreed with Honorable here for signing the agreement or not, I should not, first of all, the day NRM swears in, I should know certain anxieties to suspend for the next 5 years, okay? And therefore, if anyone else, so if I am seen sitting with him, who is NRM and I'm not, my people back home should not complain, because they should know that this is the government in power. And it's the government which is entrusted with the budget and national development. So whether you are what color, you should feel free to sit with those people of the yellow camp, because they are the ones in power, except if you're going to throw them out, but I don't see how. So that is a done deal. So having done that, we should now focus on how do we build a Uganda whereby if I'm red, he's blue, she's yellow, we still submit to Project Uganda. And it has to be an intentional process. When Nyerere did it through Ujama, it was not an easy process, it was a painful process. Ethiopia has done it through different economic projects. When we were younger, we used to have these things made in Britain, and each made in Britain went with the flag of Britain, whether it was a private enterprise or not. That's mobilizing the economy to the national project. I was in the UK when I was doing my PhD when Land Rover was sold to Germany. It was like the country had died. Because Land Rover defined Blackburn Rovers as a football club, it defined Blackburn as a city, it was a national symbol. So I am not here to blame anybody, but I'm saying we can work together. So today, especially the one who is in charge of national guidance, what are the things we can start with? So that we don't see another Ugandan being killed, you don't care. Where someone scratches, the first thing you scream is a Munyarwanda, is a Munyankole. Because as we are saying, we all don't have, we can have plan B, but we don't have a plan B country. We don't have another country. So the country can work, even as we are quarreling and squabbling. And I think for me, that's where we need to take, and going back to our discussion of the cooperation agreement, first of all, those agreements are a symbol of the failure of the national state building process. But now that we have them, and that's the stage where we are, it's good. Those who want to sign them, let them sign them. I have no problem with that. But beyond the agreements, we should not forget the national building process. And by mandate, that lies with the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, because that's the government we have now. Yes.
Yes, Honorable Ojara.
Thank you. There are people who ask questions, and I thought it would be important to answer one or two. There were two questions, and I'm not going to treat them as questions. I will use them to explain a few things. One, like the gentleman who asked, there is a gentleman who said, Mapinduzi, what else can you do without the agreement? I almost got tempted to ask him another question, whether he has got another question different from this one, because if you want to know what else I can do, then know what I have been doing all along.
Exactly.
So I would ask you, what have I been doing for all these years? I've been doing what I believe are useful and add value to the lives of the people. So if you want to know what else I can do, it's the same thing that I can do. But that kind of question comes from a culture that we have allowed as a country to emerge, where people think you shouldn't talk to Timothy because he belongs to the other side, forgetting that Timothy is a Ugandan. Timothy has got ideas. He may have one or two ideas that I don't agree with, but he may have another 1,000 ideas that are good. How do I keep firm and point out the things that I do not agree with? How do I embrace the things that I agree with? In this world, if you cannot identify what you do not agree with, and you identify what you agree with, you are actually a danger to yourself. You should be able to know what is good and what is bad. And you should also be able to provide solution to what is bad. Now, if I say there is a problem here, and my work is just pointing at problem, and I cannot find solution, then mine is probably lamentation. And I'm not interested in providing, and that is the spirit we should be on.
I have lament for 5 years.
Yes, and you cannot, if you are seriously, you see, if you are a leader and your work is lamenting, get out of that position. Let those who can provide solution come. I have repeatedly said that I look at leadership not as a position, not just as a title, but I look at leadership as a responsibility. And so if you look at leadership as a responsibility, you should be solution-oriented. And if you are solution-oriented, you should know what exactly the problem is. You should figure out how you want to solve the problem and the people you can work with to solve the problem. So if my people in Badege Laibi, and this is something that the Honorable Minister, I think Honorable Minister or Professor Sally pointed, when you go to Parliament, if I need Badege L Center 3 or Teko L Center 3 in my area,
you have to go
to be elevated from a L Center 3 to L Center 4. When we are discussing it, I am not going to talk as an opposition MP. I am going to talk as a member of Parliament. And there are members of Parliament who are NRM, who are NUP, who are FDC, that you need to work with so you can achieve your goal. So working with people is not a problem.
Okay. Honorable Ojara, let me start with you. Honorable Saranda said something that really, how do we reconcile our country? even in the differences we have. And I think I'll come to Honorable Namayanja about the radicalization of the opposition there. But how do we reconcile our country? Because we're so divided, and this has been so long. We haven't gotten back to the issues that Professor talked about, how the country was formed, and we're here.
Well, there are about 3-4 things we have to do if we want to solve any problem. Number one is to start by accepting that there is a problem. The moment we accept, we acknowledge that there is a problem, and we begin to identify what the problem is, then we begin to talk to one another. The moment we begin talking to one another, we are interacting. I hold you responsible for this, you hold me responsible for that. You are able to hear my views, I am able to know. There are certain things that are imaginary. And then I will begin to realize that, oh, it's not that bad. And you begin to realize, I am not that bad.
What are the problems
is
and
important.
who is
now,
to
let
lead
me
this
tell you this.
This reconciliation?
The biggest factor is bad politics. Bad politics. Let me tell you this. For several decades, the people from northern Uganda were looked at as bad. But we have repeatedly said, you know, you may think you can call us Kony, you can call us Anyanya, you can whatever name you want to call, but we have also had sayings from the same area. We have St. Janane Lohom from this. We have Gildo Era and Dawoodi Okello. We have prominent people. So it's not about stereotyping. It's not about thinking an area is bad. Like what is going on right now? We still have the South-North divide. We need to make deliberate efforts to reconcile that. It starts with leadership. It starts with good politics.
Timothy, even here you are reconciling people.
Yes, we need to. Let me tell you this,
NRM, FDC, academia.
Let me tell you this engagement, this engagement that you see the honorable. When I was chairman LC5 in Gulo, I made deliberate efforts to pick my councillors, and I said I want us to go to Mbarara. And I think we were the first district to build a training arrangement with Mbarara. So we begin to talk, we begin to understand one another, we begin to know what happens then. And then people say, look, hey, we thought this was like this. So there is a lot that politics bring that if we are not careful in trying to undo, people will end up killing themselves and getting angry, and you know, and it's a process. But we shouldn't let that keep on going because we have had a bad history. So let us accept to talk. It doesn't remove who you are. You can, however proud you are, know that there are things that affect you, affect your mother, your children, affect the country. So we need to talk about them and try to create some solution.
And I think I can vouch for you even in Gulu, where even when your councillors were different, the project was one. How does Gulu get elevated?
Exactly.
And you did a tremendous job while there.
And let me say this, you know, being chairman of Gulu and being a staunch member of the FDC. I was not only a member, I was even chairman of FDC in Gulu and also a member of NEC. But I would go to every ministry. I would go to every ministry and make sure I build a strong case for my district, and I can promise you we got much more than even the districts led by those in the NRM. That is it.
Honorable Namayanja, the radicalization of our politics, the commercialization of our politics, the politics has taken center stage and left the country behind. How do we reconcile these two? Especially looking at Honorable Seranda was part of TDA, was part of Honorable Mama Mbabazi, part of Honorable Kyagulanyi. The defiance, the radicalization, the victimization, all these charging emotions, how, as the leaders of government now, do you bring the reconciliation within the population?
Radicalization of politics, for me, I would say, is antiquated politics. It's very antiquated. It did not solve the problems of 1961. It did not solve the problems of 1964-66, because that was radicalization at its peak in this country. It's actually radicalization of politics that plunged this country into total turmoil. So the issue is that we must rise above that. And to me, it's not just about leaders in government. It's a responsibility for all of us. And that's why we welcome the cooperation by the DP, by UPC, and by independent members of parliament and other political parties with open hands, because it takes two to tango. The NRM will not go out and say, because so and so is this tribe, that is why you are this. No, we have not done that. But that we have heard such sentiments by the opposition. Even when we say that politics in Africa has a tribal leaning, but it's not as very pronounced as it is in Kenya, where you have a political party for a certain region. And you know that in that area, in Kikuyu, they vote 98% this type. In Luoland, everything is predetermined, even before the voting and everything. But we have situations where you have members of parliament from different, from the same sub-region, but with different political parties. That's why I said yes, and I welcome the arguments by Professor about the bringing in the economy, bringing in the cultural aspects of it, bringing in our education system. So what NRM is doing right now is making that first step. Even with a journey of 1,000 steps, you have to start with the first step. To say we can belong to different political parties, but agree on Project Uganda. And this is what we would love everybody to bring on. Otherwise, if the leaders don't embrace, Honorable Mapinduzi brought it so well, that leadership is not a position, it's not a title, it's responsibility. And it's not just about winning or losing an election. That even if you lose an election, but that people know what you stand for. We have had leaders and we have seen leaders that have done that. Honorable Siranda brought the other idea. Why do we allow the led to lead? That as a leader, you cannot say something because you fear what your constituents are going to say. A leader should be able to say, I am at the national level, these are the challenges of the time, this is how our constituency will benefit from, just like Honorable Mapinduzi has said it. So for me, I think we just need to rise above the politics of radicalization, because like I said, we do it here at national level. What we speak on TV here, people in Kabera Maido are watching, people in Amoratara are watching, people in Movenda are watching, and the members of the different political parties, that is the sentiment they go with. And in the morning, he will be able to speak to his neighbor of a different party with cordial, undertones and everything. So I really want to appeal to all of us. Uganda is bigger than us, and we are not the first. As leaders right now, regardless of our political persuasions, we are not the first and we are not the last. But at this time that we are in leadership, whether in government or opposition, we need to rise above radical politics and bring the country together. And that's what we are doing as
my last question before I get to Honorable Siranda. Are you willing to tick the boxes of this cooperations agreement, regardless of your record, for the sake of national unity?
What record?
Records of things that they have spoken about. They're asking for constitutionalism. They're asking for bloodless transition of power. Yet we have seen very riotous electoral processes in this country. Are you willing to tick the boxes of that cooperations agreement for the sake of national unity?
I said walking the talk. I used that word. The mere fact that we have this cooperation agreement and we get an opposition leader, a president general of an opposition party, and you say, you are the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. What is bigger than that, ticking that box? Because we would go in any other, if it was just cosmetic and just talking about, and there is a lot by the way that has been done by the different people that NRM has cooperated with, the different political parties that we have cooperated with, that you go in a constituency. But by the way, this argument that, you know, you have taken the party to NRM, look at the recent campaigns in Oyam South, where UPC had even when we have a cooperation agreement, UPC remains as a party of its own. UPC had a candidate, NRM had a candidate. We went out of the way, we looked for votes, the UPC won, and the national chairman of NRM, in a friendly and cooperation atmosphere, he's like, congratulations, UPC. Is there something bigger than that? I think what the president says, what they are doing is to try to project the sentiment of the leaders of the day, to say we can work together regardless of our political persuasion. So the NRM is ready to tick the box, and is actually ticking the box, and it has ticked many boxes for the various people that we have worked with.
Honorable Suranda, for you it's a twofold question. The antagonism within the DP over this agreement. What's the way forward? Secondly, what lessons have you learned from the other agreements? 1954, the different people that have been there, Uganda National Congress, on these differences. What lessons have you picked that this can be successful?
You see, Timothy and the viewers out there, there are people who have decided to make President Museveni a scarecrow and a statue. Like, you know, those days, if you want a kid to eat, if you're not eating food, that Gusajja, that man will come and eat you up, you know? So we've made President Museveni look like a statue and a scarecrow, but basically for people to win constituencies, most especially our brothers and sisters, certain category from this particular part of the nation, they think that the only way to keep your seat is to make President Museveni a scarecrow, even when you don't mean that. There are people in this area, even if President Museveni murdered how many people, God forbid even if he decided to rule like that, as long as their seats are safer, they will not care. So for me, we have to get out of the way. Even when we are comfortable with the seat, this seat allows me to come and do the engagement, and a particular group will feel we are represented within. There are groups within the DP, even in Gulu, who sponsored people from their constituencies to go to Gulu. But when they come to TV, they speak a different thing. But there are also categories, you must separate them. You know, there are people who have never supported Honorable Norbert Mao since he came to office. Since he came in. So for those ones, you have nothing to do but to continue engaging and explaining to them processes of where we want to go. And this is not the first time, but we've continued to stay. There are people who said we're bad. They left DP. Even where they have gone, you can see the chaos that are there. Even where they have gone. We said we are the worst group, we not, you know, but they have gone in as houses, but still where they have gone, the problems are there with them, and they're at the forefront of these challenges. So for us, we are not going to be deterred by a particular group that are becoming a minority in terms of the views that they are presenting.
The group is within DP that we're talking about.
We appreciate. That's why we have a Democratic Party. We are the Democratic Party. You can only do that in a Democratic Party, but we continue moving. As long as we are sure that we are moving with majority of Ugandans, we allow them to present alternatives. We have come up with this alternative that we believe is better. And if you want to make peace with your enemy, he becomes a partner. It doesn't mean you like him. Engagement in dialogue, you engage those that you don't like. After all, we already in the same line, we agree. So we must reach out to those that we want them to view our ideas as the ideas to build a nation. So for me, the processes of DP is not today. Even, you know, there are issues with Basil Batalingai and Ben Kiwanuka. There were issues with Tiberio Kenya and Dr. Semogere. There were issues with Wenje, the same Dr. Rurume, who also went and created a different force. So for us within our entity is that they are entities of engagement. But the biggest factor for now is the mission for putting Uganda first. The engagement that we have is for us to rework on the question of national unity, the question of national reconciliation, the question of national dialogue to this project. We want to be Uganda, and we feel we are part of these processes. And along the way, we have an opportunity to bring these issues on table when we can face the Honorable Namayanja face to face as partners that this is what we believe in. And Timothy, this is not one day. What we are dealing with first is the software. If you don't get the software of this phone right, you can never get the right phone. This is just an housing, but the biggest thing is the software. When you're building a project, a building, is the bill of quantities. What do you have? How many bricks do you need? How many bags of cement and all those? So what we have been doing for now is a question of dealing with the software, and I'm happy that we've generated a discussion around where we want Uganda to go. For me, that's the biggest take home. The other thing of what will come is a level of playing field, but what discussions that Ugandans are having. And for me, I want us to take this discussion. One time I want us to have this show down there in Chiseka. We want to go to Palisa, we want to go to Gulu and Bunyangabo and have this show, because it's the biggest media house in the nation, so that we engage with the people, so that people come in this discussion. And I want to encourage all our structures and our leaders. The cooperation agreement says we shall implement both the NRA manifesto and the DP manifesto. Where will DP ever get an opportunity to implement its manifesto on what it believes in? For instance, the question of proportional representation. We are saying we need to discuss the system of elections. Get proportional representation where the professor cannot win election by kneeling down. Yes. And yet she's good. So proportional representation will get an opportunity to bring her on the paper in terms of listing. You, Timothy, you can't win an election easily until you do certain things that your mind cannot allow. You know? It can't work. So we are saying as a DP that let us now bring politics of policy. You cannot say, wait, so what? Wait, and so what happens? You know, you are where you've got there. What happens? I think President Museveni has been enjoying the best time with the alternative opposition they have, because it's a politics of just sing a song, it's a politics of trying out. We need the opposition with policy alternatives, like Honorable Martin Ojara is saying, let's engage. Bring your idea on table, I bring the idea, we do an engagement on where we want Uganda, and we bring many people on board, not necessarily because they have come by a ballot, but the proportional representation will also address the question of one size fits all. The system we have in Uganda, Bobby Wine and Noop would have got many members of parliament if we had the proper system that addresses those in terms of the votes you've got. It should be equivalent to the number of seats you get. In 1980, President Museveni would have at worst got 4 MPs if we had proportional representation. He only managed to get 1. And because he was real, even the 1 MP after taking oath, he did not sit in the house. Today you have members of parliament telling you we are doing a wrong thing, we are massaging the dictator, they are in the house.
He didn't take oath.
He didn't even take oath. He won, he did not come to the house. I want our colleagues who think we are massaging the dictator to wake up in the morning, command all their members of parliament, and leave parliament, because they very massaging. They should not massage so that they don't massage in the other wing of the house. And like I said, our members of parliament, you have gone to the parliament every day. Not that you have won every motion, but you have never stopped going to the house, because you continue believing in the mission as to why you are in the house. I am a believer of Christ. Every day we go to church and say, thy kingdom come, thy kingdom come. It has not come, but I have not stopped going to church and believing thy kingdom come. It will come. And we believe it will come.
Okay, let me bring in the, but the lessons you've learned from other agreements, especially that DP has been involved in, 1954 onwards there, especially looking at the coalition, the government.
This is a big difference. We had the agreement of gentleman's agreement. We used to call it Indagano Yomukasaka, just here, without anything tangible. It was a gentleman's agreement. This is the first time, that's why people don't understand what we're trying to do. This is the first time we have a writing which allows you to cooperate. Actually, it also tells us we don't agree with the Honorable Namayanja's party on this, we'll go this way. That's why you see us every Tuesday disagreeing with the line of what, like we have a position on LC, how it is being managed. We disagree, but this is what we have to do. So for me, I think we can learn a lot of things, a lot of history, and how do we go forward. And because we learned from the other engagements. Like I told you at the beginning, the DP has the biggest stake in the NRM's coming to power. Because what sparked President Museveni's going to the bush is that the DP election had been rigged. So we are only getting back in terms of a direction. And I know that the bus, we are in the convoy with the bus. But with our engine on, if we are not happy with what is happening, we are free to turn our engine, and we are not in the bus. We are in the convoy for this project Uganda. And I believe that these processes, we don't need to go, the moment you go to dialogue engagements, when you're not sure of where you're not going and you're doubting, that's the beginning. For us, we have come to these processes. We believe that we can contribute, and we want our partners in these processes to contribute in terms of ticking the boxes. The boxes are ticking well, but I believe that we have to go in terms of actually implementing what we have within. And then that will give a lot of strategy in terms of where we're heading. For instance, the review of this PDM. How involved is other political parties in terms of where we want to go? Because this is our process.
Okay, Honorable Minister, how do you see this impact the political landscape moving forward? And what new things do you see happening, especially changes in our political sphere in this country?
I think if we can, I think you talked about genuine cooperation. If we can genuinely cooperate with BP, with UPC, and with other partners like Honorable Mapinduzi, and we put our heart to it, and it becomes a genuine cooperation, I see us moving forward, because I see us mitigating several issues that was bringing conflict within the population. And I always like the professor here. He normally thinks like we normal people. No people with the PhDs think abnormal.
Because they are supposed to think abnormal.
But you can see he's bringing simple solution to the issue of national character. Like for us in primary, to be sincere, every morning we would go on parade. We sing the national anthem. we even pray, you know. So
actually, countries like Singapore, they have what they call a national pledge.
Exactly.
That as somebody, because this is part of the software
then we have the
that we don't look at, why some of these countries have moved so far than where we are. In Singapore, as a child begins to talk at home, even before they go to school, the parents teach them a national pledge, which is about allegiance and loyalty to Singapore. When they go to school, it's the first thing. And how do they recite the pledge? They put the left hand on the chest, on the heart, and the right hand up, and they recite the national pledge on national function. So it has become, or it became, part of the national fabric, and there's no way you can talk about something every day and every now and you go and begin destroying roads.
So Timothy, that is a simple solution to a very complex issue. For instance, during our time, when you completed P7, you would just fill a form.
That was civic
applying.
education.
Exactly. And they would call you in any school, in any region. And you would meet people from Kasese going to Gulu, people from Gulu going to Fort Portal. And when you reach there, you would meet people of different cultures. And that's why the people of that age have a cross-section of friends in the whole nation. But right now, there is a problem, which I don't know how we are going to solve it. You are in Kasese, for instance. There is a secondary school. There is you complete primary in Kasese.
If even that's
you complete secondary O-level and A-level in Kasese. You even complete university in Kasese. And this is here. By the time you complete university, you have never even crossed the boundary of Kasese, unless you have gone for field work in a truck somewhere. So you get problems. And me, I had an experience because I completed my O-level in Kasese. And then I went, they called me St. Leo's College in Fort Portal. And when I reached there, I found there people from all over the country. and it was a surprise to me. I had to get problems in mixing with them. So I don't know how we are going to handle that also. Either we shall start national service, probably when children
National
complete
guidance,
senior
national
6,
guidance.
they go for national service.
Nigeria is
Nigeria is
national
doing
service.
it. I have been in Korea recently. I've just come back. They are doing it, and it is a deliberate effort. So I strongly believe all these, if we can start now, probably in about 20 years to come, we shall have built a national character.
Okay.
But this one which we are doing now, this cooperation, is also
Leads
very,
us to
very
there.
important. It is the beginning, Timothy. You shouldn't lose hope. This is just the beginning. We shall build on what we have begun to concretize it and even and roll it out, and it becomes a bigger cooperation.
Okay. We have run out of time, so I'll start with the professor, then Honorable Ojara, Honorable Rosemary, Honorable Siranda, and lastly the Honorable Minister. Your parting shots.
Yes, thank you very much. I'll begin by saying a patriotic citizen is not a natural occurrence. It is a constructed person. We have to be intentional, like everyone has explained here. I mean, like those of us who go to churches and mosques, that's what makes us those religions, because we go there every day, whether we believe there is God or not, but people go. So that is one. I've liked what Honorable Siranda has said in terms of going to the town halls. If we all agree that these agreements are the beginning step for us to go towards national unity, they don't have to be made public if they are confidential. But can we, that's why, by the way, every municipality had a town hall. I don't know whether the modern cities and districts are building town halls, but the traditional ones had town halls.
Yeah.
So even if the general agreement is confidential, what is the popular version of it that can be shared? So that it's not just the delegates conference. You know, the delegates conference sends a few people. But beyond the delegates, we can begin with the delegates conference of DP or FDC or whatever they are. But beyond that, like Honorable MP of Bardeg can have a meeting, and Bardeg is an urban constituency. Borrow space in the LC file. Tell your people what the benefits are, so that everyone knows. And why is this important? Because we've chosen that these cooperation agreements are the beginning step to building a national character. And we have agreed that these leaders have a following. So the agreement should not stop with the leaders in Kampala. They should be popularized to the people, so that the people buy into the views of why their leaders signed up to these agreements, whether as individuals or as parties. That way they will not be seen as being individualistic. And this is very important. You talked about radicalization of parties and things, but actually it's not radicalization, it is intolerance. And if you have an intolerant character, it doesn't matter, you may abolish parties, but if I'm intolerant, I will find a reason to hate you. So we need to deal with the intolerance, and we also need to deal with the intolerance of those who feel they are not very advantaged thinking. Those who have either a car or who have some means are the ones who have stolen from them. We need leaders to stop thinking that I only go to the national to grab for my people. Because if we all grab, then the national will be left hollow. We need to agree on what we need to build at national level, but also lobby, like Honorable said, to what we can take.
Yes.
And if you have not been given after lobbying, you don't grab and take. And that also, since we popularized at the town hall, our followers will not say, you Honorable Mapenduzi, you did nothing, because for the 5 years, you did nothing. So this is what's creating the grabbing kind of mentality. So I think we are on course. There's a question you asked, what it means to the national landscape. I don't think it means much. The NRM is still a dominant party. And it's not just a dominant party because it's signing cooperation agreements. It is the party in power. And that comes with certain advantages. One, for starters, it has come with PDM. It will be difficult for anyone to have any song which is not PDM. Maybe PDM collapses tomorrow. Okay. But if PDM is going to run for the next 5 years, that's going to be it. Roads, that's going to be it. So with the development, they have something to show. So national landscape, it might remain NRM. Thank you.
Honorable Jara.
Well, two quick things. One, we should be able to understand what the early warning signs are if we want to solve a problem. If we are not sensitive enough as a country, and we don't begin to detect early enough the things that are not good for the country, then we can continue with business as usual, refuse to talk, blame game and taking, radical positions and all that. But if we care that we want to have a better Uganda, then we should accept to cooperate. And cooperating, just as I said, doesn't mean cooperating with the NRM only. Cooperating generally, and on the basis of what you believe in and what you don't believe in. The other thing that these cooperations, these agreements that are being signed, is good for both the NRM as a party in power, but also good for the opposition political parties. Because if you are a political party that believes in extremism, violence, and intolerance, that culture will follow you when you become a ruling party. You will fail to manage it. So what you do now as a political party will have a lot of bearing when you finally take over. So there are people who, and I really sympathize with people who believe in violence and they think talking is bad, because it's not sustainable. How are you going to manage when you finally take over power? But also we should build an environment where those in power are sure about tomorrow and know when I finally leave power, I am going to be safe and I'll continue calling this country my home. And those who are going into power, people will have the confidence and know that when this one goes to power, they are going to have the same value and protect. The moment we build that environment, it has nothing. There are many things we have to deal with, but there are certain standards that we have to set.
Okay.
And the moment those standards are there, then we will begin to build on, and things will get better. So,
Honorable Namayand.
For me, first of all, what does the country gain out of this cooperation at national level? What is gained is what the late Honorable Nsibambi used to refer to as cross-pollination of ideas. When they do have ideas, we have ideas, UPC has ideas, independents have ideas, they all come on the table. Independent members of parliament, the NRM caucus is one area where independent members of parliament who have signed the MOU come and sit. And we keep telling people that there is a lot that goes on in that caucus. It is real debate on a number of issues. When we go to Chankwans, it is debate about issues that affect this country, issues that affect constituencies, issues that affect everyone. So that cross-pollination of ideas is very important. It's a gain. And who loses when there is hostility? It is the population. If you have a member of parliament that says, I cannot talk to somebody in government, then the constituency has lost out for 5 years. Like Honorable Mapenduzi said, you cannot say you raise from a health center 3 to health center 4 when, whether you believe it or not, there is a government in power. There is a manifesto being implemented. There is a party which is in charge of the budget. So if you want services for your constituency, if you want services for your people, then you should be at peace to go to a ministry and say, these are the challenges. Because otherwise, a member of parliament cannot do roads, a member of parliament cannot do hospitals in their constituencies. So the loser in this is not actually the leader. It's not the MP. It's the constituency. For these 5 years, you'll have that lamentation and abuses and everything, and the area you lead, lose. So I just want to say that what is good for the goose is good for the gander. Okay. If the opposition can sit and coalesce and talk together and form alliances, then it is also okay for the ruling party to sit and work with others. Otherwise, as a party, we mean what we say, and we say what we mean.
Thank you very much. Honorable Suranda.
There is one country called Gambia. There was a leader called Adama Barrow. Jami. He had lost in elections to Adama Barrow. He got his phone. He called the person who had beaten him and say, congratulations, how do we plan to hand over, and what is our safety, and the project we had started. Just as he put his phone down, and the regime change extremists started calling and saying, we shall go with your head, you have done hell to this nation, we don't want to hear. And now the man turned and said, I'm not going anywhere now. It was chaos. The regime change extremists want to bring Uganda to be like what is in Sudan, or to go to Libya. We are saying that we have one country. And I want to end by saying, you can have all the plan B, but you have no country B. This is our nation, and we can contribute. We have done everything. But I believe that President Museveni now is at the time where we need to engage him, so that he does not only look at the alternative of only the Honorable Namayanja and the Honorable Minister with him, but all of us can contribute to this nation. And it is biblical. You come, let's reason together. This is our motherland.
Isaiah 118.
Yes, come, let's reason together.
Okay.
And for me, I want to encourage the DP members, those that really believe that they have a role to play within this party. This is a person who has said, come with your party. The other one had said, leave your party and join me. So what do you go with? The one who said, abandon your green and your party, and I only want to see one red corner, or the one who says, come with your party and let's work together?
And sit
for
in
me,
cabinet
and
with your
sit,
red,
so that
sit
sit with your entity.
tie
We
and-
have an opportunity to lead the ministry that is in charge of constitutional review. I want to encourage all those that believe Uganda has something that we want to offer. Let them bring the proposals. Court had directed us to do processes. I know that the ministry will be making a ministerial statement, consulting cabinet. We want all these good ideas of national dialogue. You know, we want a commission on national dialogue. We want a commission on national reconciliation and truth. All those to engage Ugandans. They can even be much better if we embed them within our constitution.
Okay.
So we have an opportunity to rebuild the processes of a constitutional review as we go to an election. Instead of lamenting and abusing everybody, for us, we believe that the energy is in engaging, and that's the power of the DP. So the DP members out there, we're encouraging you to go to districts, do town halls, up to our branches. We want to move with the party and bring the DP manifesto that believes Uganda is bigger to engage with the NRM.
Thank you
and
very
Uganda.
much. Lastly, Honorable Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think I would like to tell all our viewers and listeners that cooperation, coalition in NRM is not new. We have had broad-based governments. We have negotiated with different parties and even fighting groups. Yeah. And some of them have even been incorporated in government. Moses Ali is one of them. He's now working with the government, he's now NRM and others.
Muse
Chweru is there. So that's not new at all. But probably the only new thing now, as Honorable Seranda said, is now putting things in black and white.
Yes.
Writing an agreement. And I would like also to advise the opposition that if they don't cooperate, me now, I'm advising them. I don't want them to cooperate because I still want to win them. But if they don't cooperate, as opposition, they should forget about ever taking power. Because each opposition party, independently, these opposition parties which I see here will never take power from NRM. So for us, if they oppose cooperation, we don't mind about them. But for us as NRM, that has been our history, that has been our principle, and that's why the president has very cool people at the secretariat. Right Honorable Todom, Right Honorable Namayanja, very cool, who can listen who can draft agreements in a cool manner. and that's what we want. So we shall continue cooperating with parties, because the main, any party would like to sustain itself in what?
In power.
In power. Every party wants to take power and sustain itself in power. And one of the strategies is so we shall continue cooperating.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Let me read these 3 messages. The structure of government is also an issue. The National Assembly, which is the parliament, is convened on constituencies, so members expend energy on local interests. Is there a time where we consider another house, perhaps a Senate, to focus on national issues? Thank you. Joseph from Rwenshamiri. Thank you very much. One more here that comes in. Thank you for the show. Unless our leaders and politicians are vaccinated against anti-greed, every political party will continue to work for its stomach, tribe, and family. That does not bring any unity. But this is very profound. Thomas says from Hoima, national language is essential and a prerequisite for national unity, which all post-independent regimes have ignored, and we need it as we move forward. But also, as we close the show today, I want to thank the production team that is behind there that has made today possible. I also want to thank the ladies and the gentlemen that are here. Thank you very much for coming through. I think the things that are our takeaway today, Project Uganda is for all of us. It is not for a chosen few. And all of us are important in how we get the national unity, the peace, the reconciliation in this country. And as the professor said, there are simple solutions to these problems. Finally, we'll say as a country, we need to reflect on what we are. We need to do some soul searching. But we'll end with this quote from Albert Einstein, which says, searching for the truth is more precious than possession. Searching for the truth is more precious than possession. God bless you. Have a fabulous morning.
In fulfillment of the Constitution obligation, which mandates the state to make reasonable provision for the welfare and maintenance of the aged, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is implementing the Social Assistance Programme for Empowerment, SAGE, designed to provide income security and reduce poverty among older persons. Over 300,000 older persons